Throughout this podcast, we'll be discussing what stop motion is, the 12 principles of animation, and the different devices that have been used to create stop motion. So what is animation? This is a technique where you film one frame at a time, and also by moving different types of content in each of these frames. More than 10 to 12 frames per second, and this is apparent as a smooth video. What is persistence of vision? When you play your frames, it will cause an optical illusion, making it look realistic to the viewer. This is how stop motion looks animated. This makes the animation look real from the human eye. And finally, what is frame rate? Frame rate is the number of different frames used in each second of an animation. The higher the frame rate, the smoother the image. The lower the frame rate, the less smooth the video is.
Now we're going to be talking about the 12 principles of animation. The first principle will be squash and stretch. This is quite simple, since it is literally just an object getting bigger or smaller vertically. When this is used, it changes facial expressions, density and texture of an object. The second principle is anticipation. Adding anticipation shows that effort and movement is being put into an object. This allows the viewer to realise what the character is doing before he does it. Multiple anticipations during an action cause a smooth look. The third principle will be staging. Staging is when characters come onto the scene at different points, which allows the viewer to understand what's going on and helps them decide who to look at without feeling confused. Further away shots are more effective for looking at the general situation. Close-up shots focus on the thing that they want you to pay attention to. Close-up shots also show facial expressions to a higher degree. Staging will make the scenario known, for example, someone's mood or the atmosphere in the video. The fourth principle will be pose to pose. This is the drawings that actually animate the object. As long as the drawings are connected quite frequently, it will look animated and quite smooth. You must draw the shape of the object yourself or use stencils on the software to create objects. Making the object smaller gradually makes it look like it's getting further away and vice versa. Pose to pose vocabulary is keys, extremes and breakdowns. The next principle is follow through and overlapping actions. Follow through is the movement of the object after the main body has stopped. Anticipating when momentum is needed, and the amount of follow through of the object tells you about the mass of it. Overlapping actions help to break up an animation to make it look more interesting. The next principle will be slow in and slow out. The speed that the object is moving from start to finish, slow, medium or fast movement. It's used to achieve lifelike motion, and you must draw each frame evenly apart to make it look more realistic and smooth. The next principle will be arcs, moving an object in a circular path. Most objects must follow an arc-shaped pose to make it look more smooth. Adding an arc to an object gives it more character. For an arc, keep the x-axis the same and giving the y-axis a slow in and slow out. When movements are fast, it forms a smear, which is an effective technique for animating. Secondary action. Gestures that support the main action to add dimension to the character's animation. Secondary action is when there are two significant actions going on at once, although the secondary action should never dominate the primary. The next principle will be timing. This is the personality of the animation and is a factor of adding a number of frames between each action. The more frames inserted in an action, the slower the movement, the more detailed the action is. Frames set far apart, the faster the movement. If one drawing is made for each frame, it's called drawing on ones. If one drawing is made for each 2 frames, it's called drawing on twos, and this proceeds. The next principle is exaggeration, taking an action to the next level for more emphasis. As long as the majority of the frames aren't too extreme to the naked eye, it will look normal. Push the exaggeration level until it gets too much, and then model from there. The next principle is solid drawing. Making an object or character look like it's in 3D space by including volume, weight, and balance. Use basic 3D shapes to construct objects. Spheres, cubes, and cylinders. These will help you understand the space that your object is in. Also, draw perspective lines to give your character context to show where the object is. This lets you know when you need to make the character big or smaller. A pair of straight lines with a curved line will make it look more natural. Avoid twinning and symmetry. Twinning is when different features of the body are doing the same thing. This makes the animation look mechanical. Solid drawing also shows that an object must keep its balance and has weight, making it look much more realistic. The final and 12th principle will be appeal. All characters must have a noticeable feature that makes them stand out in the film. This gives your character a dynamic design. Emphasize the features that make it interesting and reduce the side that might not be as appealing, but keep this in proportion. Keep the character simple and not complex. Keep the important features visible and add extra content where necessary to show characteristic more clearly.
We will now be talking about the 3 different devices used to animate and how they work. The first one is called zoetrope. This was invented in 1834 by William George Horner. It was an early form of motion pictures projector that consisted of a drum containing a set of still images. This was to create an illusion in motion. It can be turned at a variable rate to create slow motion or speeded up effects. The zoetrope is still used today to create animated GIFs and video displays such as streaming videos. This is to create an effect of motion by presenting closely related images one after another. Light then shines through the hole to create an illusion of a moving object or image. So what is a phanistoscope? Well, this was invented in 1832 by a Belgian physicist, Joseph Platter, and his sons had created the phanistoscope. The same device was invented in the same year by an Austrian man called Simon von Stampfer, who had called his invention a stroboscope. So how does it work? It uses a persistence of motion principle to create an illusion of motion. It consists of 2 discs that are on the same axis. The first disc has slots round the edge and the second disc has a drawing of a progressive motion. These discs spin together in the same direction. When the motion is viewed in a mirror through the first disc slot, the pictures from the second disc will appear to move. The final device is called kinetoscope. This was invented by a man called William Kennedy Dixon in the spring of 1883. Edison told Dixon to invent an instrument which does for the eye what the phonograph has done for the ear. He believed that the motion picture would be achieved by a light source being shone onto a microphotograph in the device. So what are the limitations of these 3 devices? Well, although these devices were good in their times, they have limitations from the modern animation we have today. Firstly, with the old devices, only one person can view the animation at a time. With the modern animation, everybody can watch these from different sources, for example, television. Also, nowadays, animation can contain a high number of images in each frame. As with the old device, you can only add a certain amount of frames per second, meaning that it's a lot more time consuming and less efficient. This also means that their clips were a lot shorter and lesser quality than modern animation, with longer clips and better quality content.
In the next part of the podcast, we're going to explain and discuss some of the pioneers of the stop motion industry. We're going to talk about Ray Harryhausen, Michael Gondry, and Aardman. Let's start with Ray Harryhausen. He was an American-British visual effect creator, writer and producer who created a form of stop motion model animation also known as Dynamation. He was well known for creating memorable animation such as Mighty Joe Young, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and his last film, Clash of the Titan. Next, we've got Michael Gondry. He is a French independent film director, screenwriter, and producer. He has been noted for his inventive visual style and distinctive manipulation of mise-en-scène. He has won many awards, mainly for Best Original Screenplay for The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in 2004. He has created other screenplays, for example, The Science of Sleep, Be Kind Reward, and The Green Hornet. The final pioneer of the stop-motion industry that I'll discuss is Aardman. Aardman Animation Limited, also known as Aardman Studios, is a British animation studio based in Bristol. It is known for films made using stop-motion clay animation techniques. The animation made by Aardman, which is called Countryside... read the wrong one. And those featuring plasticine characters like Wallace and Gromit. One of the first short films was called Owsat. This then entered the computer animation market with the film Flushed Away. These films have made a total of 972.1 million worldwide and $163 million per film. All of their stop motion films are among the highest grossing stop motion films, with their debut Chicken Run being their top grossing film as well as the highest grossing stop motion film of all time. Now we will be talking about the different ways
of creating stop motion and comparing three different structures of animation. So, claymation plasticine models. An example of this will be Wallace and Gromit. This was a good technique and still is nowadays in any type of content, because the whole purpose of plasticine models is to make them look funny and attract the audience. The second type of creating an animation is inanimate objects, and this will be Lego figures. These inanimate objects are a good technique for certain types of content such as films. This will be films that will be expected to be watched by children, as these inanimate objects fit children's needs. We will now be comparing three different structures of animation and how they're different. After watching the stop motion Jason and the Argonauts, I discovered that throughout the short clip the content was a bit sluggish. This is because throughout the frame rate must be low, and this is what's making the movement unrealistic and less smooth. This was the case when the skeletons were appearing from the ground. This was an old animation, so could explain why it wasn't clear, because animation has improved since then. This was a narrative which was almost telling the audience a story. In our opinion, we would have thought it would have been more smooth and realistic, because they wanted to aim to give as much information as possible to its audience. Also, in this narrative, they have mixed animation characters with real characters, which is called dynamation. It's also the fact that films are made for you to believe, which is what animated models show. Also, after us watching The White Stripes fell in love with a girl, this is a lot more unrealistic than Jason and the Argonauts, so must mean it must have fewer frame rates than the other one. This is also a music video. As with Jason and the Argonauts, it's a narrative. The standard frame rate for animation is 24 frames per second, and with this animation it wasn't that which affected the quality. It is also a fast animation which was different from the first animation, and this is also affecting the quality, as we cannot see specific details on the objects. In this certain animation, they have used inanimate characters, for example the Lego, which means it must be aimed at a certain audience. Also, the speed of the animation goes with the rhythm of the song, which makes it okay in its purpose. Also, with the music video, the Lego moving is eye-catching sequence in the stimulating movement. It interests anybody watching, because it's quite uncommon. You see something of that style and most people can appreciate the effort put in to get the quality it is. The final animation was called Countryside Code. This animation made by Aardman was called Countryside Code, which was an advert structure. We had thought that it was very smooth throughout, which we would expect as it's the most recent out of the three. For example, when the characters are speaking, the mouth moves like it would do in real life. The quality of this piece is the highest out of the three. A reason for this, there's more than one thing moving at a time, which is a lot more time consuming for the producers, but worth the time because it makes it look more real. Also, because it's an advert, it is acceptable to use plasticine models, because this gives the advert a sense of humour, and this will suit everybody because the main purpose is to fit everybody's need. This could also link to the fact that technology is changing, so therefore animation has become more effective.
In the next and final part of our podcast, we're going to be talking about the improvement of technology over the years it's been around. So how has animation improved over the years? Well, it's been around for around 5,000 years, although it did not have any moving images. It was still consecutive images joined together. But in the early stages of animation, where people used the zoetropes and flipbooks to create animations, animation was what made cartoon, and also it has transformed cartoon over the years. Technology has helped animation evolve from 2 to 3 dimensional format, and even onto stereoscopic 3D. Animation films nowadays are a lot more realistic than the olden days, and an example of this is that the detail in objects and characters are much greater. This has changed the experience for viewers when watching animation. It's also important that nowadays the frame rate has improved. For example, the standard frame rate is 24 FPS, which is just standard, so therefore more and more animations are using 48 FPS, which gives the content in the animation a more smooth and realistic look. In the olden days, the frame rate was so low, so this resulted in lower quality movement. Also, animation footage is now available on different devices and formats, which gives the audience of today a wider variety of things to watch. I also think that with this increase in technology, the animation production will improve even more. So, that brings us to an end of our discussion about the background details with stop motion. We've discussed the mechanics of it, to the original creation and distribution of it. We hope that our podcast has helped you with your studies.